Van Halen formed in the early 70s with their classic lineup of Eddie Van Halen on guitar, Alex Van Halen on drums, David Lee Roth on lead vocals, and Michael Anthony on bass, solidifying in 1974. Gene Simmons of Kiss produced a 29-track demo, but the Kiss company prevented him from working further with the band. They got a record deal with Warner Brothers and released their debut album in 1978. This classic lineup recorded 6 albums together, but Roth left the band or was maybe fired. Tensions were bad. Sammy Hagar was brought in, and the band managed to reinvent itself with another string of hit albums. The band took a major blow when Hagar left, or, like Roth before him, was maybe fired. Gary Cherone was brought on for one disastrous album in the late 90s, and the band would not record another album for over a decade. Van Halen discography consists of 12 studio albums. I am going to rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, this is just my opinion. The barometer here is me. Okay? Okay. Before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe, and you can support the channel on Patreon. Number 12, Van Halen 3. Released in 1998, this was produced by Mike Post and Van Halen. It is the one and only album to feature Cherone on lead vocals. After things ended badly with Hagar, they actually did kind of tease reuniting with Roth. They worked with him a little bit and appeared with him at the 1996 VMAs. But apparently this was just a publicity stunt unknown to Roth, and they were already auditioning singers while working with Roth. Just to give you an idea of where their headspace was at this time. Anthony is also barely featured on bass, only appearing on 3 tracks. Eddie Van Halen plays bass on the rest of the album. Many view it as basically an Eddie Van Halen solo album. This is my first time listening to the album, though I've heard snippets before, and my immediate reaction was, what is this? It's a disaster. Cherone sounds awful. He's doing a kind of Hagar impression, but it's really bad. It's grating and weird. I've heard Extreme, Cherone's band, and he's got a solid voice. It doesn't make sense. The lyrics aren't any good either. Cringe lines like Superman looking for Lois, Pizza Man just want a slice, or whatever. It's hookless and random. The parts feel disconnected, and there are 2 8-minute songs. The album is way too long, and it took years off my life. The only track I liked was the opening instrumental, New World. Number 11, Balance. Released in 1995, this was produced by Bruce Fairbairn. It was recorded during a period of tension between the Van Halen brothers and Hagar, and you can kind of hear it. There's a pretty distinct contrast between what Eddie Van Halen wanted to do and what Hagar wanted to do. Overall, this is a weird album. I think it's a textbook example of an 80s band being totally clueless in the 90s. It doesn't feel as confident as previous albums, and the choruses don't hit as hard. Outside of Can't Stop Loving You and Not Enough, I think this is really bad. Not quite Van Halen 3 bad, but I do not like it. Number 10, OU812. Released in 1988, this is produced by Van Halen. Hagar said the album basically didn't have a producer, which is odd, but also might explain some stuff. Feel So Good and When It's Love are pretty solid, but I'm pretty on the rest. Nothing really stands out or is all that memorable, and some stuff is just way too long. With Hagar, Van Halen's music got longer and longer. Their classic material was quick and punchy. Some Hagar-era material sounds bloated to me. Why is Cabo Wabo 7 minutes long? Number 9, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Released in 1991, this was produced by Andy Johns, Ted Templeman, and Van Halen. It was Templeman's return to the band, which I think made a difference. I prefer the sound of this over 5150 and OU812. It's more guitar-driven. However, this album doesn't do a lot for me. Right Now does pick up a lot of the slack. I think that is a great song. And I also dig Pound Cake and Top of the World. But that's about it for me. Number 8, A Different Kind of Truth. Released in 2012, this is produced by John Shanks and Van Halen. Van Halen did a bit of a reunion tour in 2007 with Roth back on lead vocals, but with Eddie Van Halen's son Wolfgang on bass instead of Anthony. While he was initially reluctant to record a new album, Eddie Van Halen was eventually convinced by his son. I remember getting this album back in 2012. I think I was a senior in high school, and I really enjoyed it. It was so cool to have a new Van Halen album. And listening to it now, right after Van Halen 3, this comes across like a masterpiece. It's kinda heavy and fast with solid and focused musicianship. Really solid material throughout, and I don't care what anybody says, Tattoo freaking rocks. I love that song. Number 7, Fair Warning. Released in 1981, this was produced by Ted Templeman. It's an album I like and enjoy listening to, but not a ton stands out to me. It's not an album that I love. I really like Unchained, but that's the only real standout to me. But it is a really solid album. Number 6, Diver Down. Released in 1982, this was produced by Ted Templeman. The band initially wanted to take a break, with Roth suggesting that they just put out a single just to kind of keep their name out there. But then the single was really successful, and Warner Brothers basically demanded an album. As a result, 5 of the songs on this ended up being covers, including that successful single, Pretty Woman. Like Fair Warning, I think it's a solid album that is fun to listen to, but it's not like a standout album. My favorite tracks are Where Have All the Good Times Gone and Pretty Woman. Number 5, Women and Children First. Released in 1980, this was produced by Ted Templeman. It is a much heavier album than the first two, which I like a lot. And The Cradle Will Rock and Everybody Wants Some are the highlights for me. Fun album. Number 4, 5150. Released in 1986, this was produced by Mick Jones, Don Landy, and Van Halen. This was Hager's first album, and is almost shocking how different it is from previous Van Halen albums. The guitar is much lower in the mix, and it's a lot more pop and synth driven. This ranking is my first time hearing most of these Van Halen albums in their entirety. I had heard all the big songs, of course, but only 4 albums in their entirety. A Different Kind of Truth, 2 we haven't talked about yet, and this one. I found it at a CD trade post in middle school and wanted it because of Dreams, the very first Van Halen song I ever heard, due to its inclusion in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. So I have a decent amount of nostalgia for this one. This album ranks so high because the highlights are just so damn good. Dreams is one of my favorite songs ever, and I love Love Walks In and Why Can't This Be Love. Those 3 songs kind of take it up quite a bit for me. The rest of the album is fine. Number 3, 1984. Released in 1984, this was produced by Ted Templeman. It is one of the band's best-selling albums, and one of the 4 I had heard prior to this video. It's an impossible album to deny. When it just starts with Jump and Panama back-to-back, it just immediately makes an impression. Hot for Teacher and I'll Wait are also really great. Number 2, Van Halen 2. Released in 1979, this was produced by Ted Templeman. The first 2 Van Halen albums are stupidly good. It's kind of insane how much talent is on display. The performances are incredible and almost every song kicks ass. It's a great album, though not quite as strong as Number 1, Van Halen. Released in 1978, this was produced by Ted Templeman. Runnin' with the Devil was the second Van Halen song I ever heard due to its conclusion in the Detroit Rock City movie. So I've listened to this album quite a bit. And it's a fantastic album, so much fun. It sounds great with some really great tones. You immediately get a sense of how talented each member of the band was and what they brought to the table. This is a band. Each guy brings so much personality. The guitar playing, of course, is just phenomenal. Eruption is such a statement. That's my ranking. Again, this is just my opinion. What's your ranking? What do you think of Van Halen? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.